The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. It was the evening of Abeni's long-awaited wedding to Olu, a union blessed by their families and elders. The air was filled with music and laughter, and the aroma of traditional dishes wafted through the air. Abeni, adorned in a vibrant geli and handwoven aso oak, felt her heart swell with joy as she danced with her new husband under the glowing stars, but later that night, in the privacy of their new home, her joy turned to ashes. A whisper in the wind, a message delivered by an anonymous letter, tore her world apart. Olu had betrayed her. He had lain with her childhood friend, Mora, just days before their wedding. Abeni's heart pounded in her chest, disbelief washing over her. She thought of the sacred vows they had exchanged, of the family and community that had blessed their union. How could Olu do this? Tears welled in her eyes, but the burning pain of betrayal quickly ignited into anger. This was not just about her broken heart, this was about the sanctity of marriage, the dishonor brought upon her family, and the expectations of the village. Without hesitation, she stormed into the village square the next morning, confronting Olu before the entire community. "How dare you betray me, on our wedding night no less?" she shouted, her voice cutting through the dawn silence. The elders gathered. Concerned murmurs rippling through the crowd. Olu stood still, guilt etched on his face. The village was aghast, stunned by the gravity of the accusations. Mora, who had been hiding in the crowd, stepped forward, head bowed in shame. "It is true," she whispered, barely audible. The silence that followed was deafening. Abeni, her eyes blazing with righteous fury, turned to the village council of elders. "I demand justice. You have all seen how I was humiliated and dishonored. If our traditions mean anything, if marriage means anything, something must be done." The village elders, draped in their ceremonial robes, called for a council to decide the fate of Olu and Mora. But the real journey for Abeni had just begun. She knew that justice, true justice, could not merely be handed down by the elders. She would seek something deeper, a resolution not just for herself, but for every woman who had been betrayed. Her family rallied behind her, and soon the entire village was split. Some sided with Abeni, supporting her quest for justice and retribution, while others, swayed by Olu's charm, tried to downplay his actions. But Abeni's resolve remained unshaken. As the confrontation between the two families became a community-wide spectacle, Abeni stood tall. Her spirit unyielding. Cultural norms, taboos, and expectations of loyalty, especially for women, were challenged. She became the voice of defiance, unwilling to be silenced or dismissed. Days turned into a blur of emotions, and Abeni began to question whether revenge was truly the path she wanted to follow. In her heart, there was still love for Olu, despite his betrayal. But how could she reconcile that love with the pain he had caused? Her heart felt like a battleground, torn between anger and lingering affection. With these thoughts swirling, Abeni sought the counsel of her grandmother, a wise elder known for her deep understanding of ancient customs. Sitting under the ancient baobab tree, her grandmother spoke softly, "Justice and revenge are not the same, my child. Betrayal cuts deep, but healing is what restores the soul. If you seek revenge, you will find only bitterness. But if you seek true justice, you may find a path to forgiveness and healing." Abeni pondered her grandmother's words, realizing that her anger, while valid, could cloud her judgment. The village awaited the council's decision, but she understood that the justice she sought was not about punishing Olu or Mora, it was about reclaiming her dignity and finding a way to heal herself. On the day of the final judgment, Abeni stood before the village once more, her voice strong and clear. "I have been wronged, and I will not pretend otherwise. But I will not let this betrayal define me. I choose to forgive, but I do not forget. Olu and Mora will live with their choices, as will I. But I will walk the path of healing, and in time, the pain will fade." The village watched in awe as Abeni turned away from the council, her head held high. She had reclaimed her power, not through revenge, but through her strength and grace. As the council deliberated, the weight of Olu's betrayal grew heavier. The community had always held marriage in sacred regard, and his actions violated not only Abeni's trust but the communal values upheld for generations. The council ruled that Olu's act of infidelity had dishonored the village. They decreed he must be ostracized from public gatherings and excluded from communal privileges until he proved himself worthy of forgiveness. Mora was also chastised, though not as severely, as it was believed that Olu, as the man, held greater responsibility. The village elders instructed both families to engage in restitution rituals to restore harmony, but Olu, bearing the brunt of public scorn, found himself increasingly isolated. Now an outcast, Olu's once prominent stature in the village had crumbled. Friends avoided him, and even the young men who once admired him now regarded him with disdain. He struggled in silence, grappling with his guilt and shame. Every day felt like a reminder of his mistakes, and he realized that the life he had taken for granted was now a distant memory. Abeni, meanwhile, grappled with the aftermath of the council's decision. Though she had publicly declared her choice to forgive, the pain remained. The village was split between sympathy for her and quiet pity for Olu. She wondered if true healing could come from her forgiveness alone or if Olu needed to make a deeper amends. In the weeks following the ruling, Abeni found herself reflecting on the bond she once shared with Olu, the man who had promised her the world, only to shatter it. She watched as he tried to re-establish himself, performing menial tasks and offering assistance to those in need, though most shunned his efforts. One evening, as she walked by the river, Abeni saw Olu sitting alone, gazing at the water with a haunted expression. She hesitated, torn between anger and a deep sense of empathy. Approaching him, she felt the weight of her own heartache and the tangled emotions that had held her captive for too long. "I never wanted this for us," Olu whispered, his voice thick with regret. "But I can't undo what's been done." Abeni studied him for a moment, seeing the weight of his guilt. "I know," she replied, her voice soft yet resolute. "But this isn't just about us anymore. You broke something that cannot be mended with words. It will take time, and even then, it may never be as it was." As Olu nodded, Abeni felt a wave of unexpected sadness wash over her. Though she had chosen the path of forgiveness, the scars remained. In that moment, she realized that healing was not just her burden to carry, it was Olu's as well. From that moment, Abeni's journey shifted from seeking revenge to seeking deeper understanding. She began to reflect on the complex nature of human relationships and the fragility of trust. As she pondered forgiveness and redemption, her emotions evolved from raw pain to a cautious desire for closure, not just for herself, but also for Olu. While she had chosen to forgive him in public, Abeni now struggled with how to reconcile her personal healing with the possibility of his redemption. In the weeks that followed, Abeni spent time meditating on the wisdom her grandmother had shared. Justice, as her grandmother had said, was not about punishment but about balance. This concept began to resonate with Abeni. She understood that for true healing to occur, both she and Olu needed to confront the consequences of their actions in a way that allowed them to grow, not remain trapped in the past. Olu, now an outcast in the village, faced a long and difficult road. The village's rejection was a constant reminder of his fall from grace. But Abeni noticed subtle changes in his behavior. He seemed quieter, more introspective, and less concerned with the opinions of others. He began to do small acts of service, fetching water for the elderly, repairing broken roofs, and helping farmers in the fields. Though many refused his help, a few began to see that he was attempting to make amends, not just for his transgression, but for the person he had been. Abeni, still hurt, found herself softening toward him not out of love, but out of understanding. She recognized that both of them were suffering in their own ways. Though her heart was still wounded, she could see that Olu's path toward redemption was sincere, if difficult. One evening, she visited her grandmother again and asked, "Can a heart that is broken ever truly heal?" Her grandmother smiled gently. "A heart never returns to what it was, child. But it can be made stronger. It can learn to love differently, more wisely, and with greater resilience." As Abeni reflected on these words, she understood that her healing was not just about moving on from Olu, but about becoming a stronger version of herself. She began to engage with the village women, sharing her story, listening to theirs, and fostering a sense of community that transcended individual pain. The village, once divided, began to unite under Abeni's leadership. They held gatherings to share experiences of betrayal, loss, and healing, allowing the community to reclaim their shared humanity. Olu, witnessing Abeni's resilience and grace, found himself inspired. He realized that true redemption lay not in seeking forgiveness from her but in earning it through actions that would restore the trust of the community. One day, he approached Abeni as she led a discussion among the women. "Abeni," he said, his voice steady but earnest, "I know I can never take back what I did. But I want to help, not just to redeem myself, but to support you and the village in healing. I will do whatever it takes." Abeni looked at him, and for the first time since the betrayal, she saw the man she had once loved, not just the betrayer. "If you truly wish to help," she said slowly, "you must prove it through your actions. Healing takes time, and it must come from within you." As Olu nodded, understanding her challenge, Abeni felt a shift within her. She realized that forgiveness was not an end but a beginning, a chance to redefine their relationship on new terms. With time, Olu's efforts bore fruit. He became a trusted member of the community once more, slowly earning back the respect he had lost. Abeni, though still navigating her own healing, found solace in the path of mutual growth they were forging. Months later, under the same baobab tree where they had once discussed the past, Abeni and Olu sat together, no longer as lovers or enemies but as allies in their shared journey. The sun set behind them, casting a warm glow that seemed to symbolize new beginnings. "I may never fully heal from the past," Abeni said, her voice steady, "but I can choose to move forward." "We all can," Olu smiled, gratitude shining in his eyes. "And I will do my best to walk beside you on that journey." One step at a time, as the stars began to twinkle overhead, Abeni and Olu sat in comfortable silence, both aware that while their past was marked by pain, their future held the promise of healing, understanding, and a deeper connection forged through adversity.